Om Namo Narayana. So we are looking at the Bhagavad Gita, the first chapter, and the initial few shlokas, which metaphorically is representing the inner battle. And mostly within us, the battle is between the buddhi and the manas. No? The sons of Pandu, called Pandavas, are those who are metaphorically all representations of the intellect. And especially this is from the Indian yogic and Vedantic things, the division between intellect and mind. So mind as such is that faculty which doesn't reason, which doesn't decide, and which doesn't have that committing kind of quality. It is then of the nature of restlessness. It is drawn and driven by the senses. And so a person who is caught up in that acts based on their samskaras, their habitual tendencies. So just like how, most animals are. Animals are generally driven by instincts. So if they like somebody, they will run towards that person. And if they're afraid or hate someone, they'll run away. So this is a mental kind of things. And when our desires and our samskaras are strong, we are driven by that mind faculty. So here this representation of that fight between the intellect and the mind, meaning the Pandavas represent the intellect aspect, and the Dhritarashtra is, aptly like blind, right? So the mind is blind. So the blind mind, and his soul is children, meaning the sons who are driven by those samskaras and sense-based inclinations, like avidya and raga. So those are the qualities which Duryodhana mostly represents. So in fact, in Mahabharata, there's a very famous shloka of Duryodhana. So one time, before the war and all that, Krishna and all the seniors tried to, sit down with him and try to explain to him, see, what you're doing is not correct. You should give that share of the property to your brothers. They are right, it's rightfully theirs. So that is a dharma, they say. You should walk the path of dharma. And what you're doing is adharma. You know. So there, he makes a very honest assessment of himself. And this famous shloka is quoted oft, where he says, Janami dharma nachame pravritti, janami adharmam nachame nivritti, kenepi devena hridisthitena, yata niyuktosmi tatha karomi. So I know what is dharma. Don't preach to me what is dharma. I know what is dharma, but I don't want to do it. I know what is adharma, and I cannot stay away from it, meaning I cannot refrain myself from it. Kenepi devena hridistitena. There is some impulse in me which is driving my action. It is that the god, he says, the god of senses, the god of desires. Sometimes we say kamadeva. There's a god also for lust, desires, and all that. So meaning sense-based desires. So that god is sitting in that heart, you say. uh, then I will do as it impels me, as it drives me, I will do it. So I will not listen to what you are telling me. So that is if you look at it at the when we are driven by our own desires, we are actually saying that. So many times, like when we are rebelling against our own tendencies or others, what people are telling us, this is that deep impulse in us which doesn't want to listen to what is our intellect telling us. And just like how Duryodhana says, there is something in me that is driving my action. Even though I know what is truth, what is righteousness, I don't want to do it. So this is especially in the yogic path, it is mentioned that main challenge of yoga, the main practice of yoga is to do what you should be doing. Meaning you know what is right after you have knowledge, of course. You know what is right and you should be doing that, but you're not able to do it. So the yogic mark is to make sure that you abide in that. So that is a kind of tapas, right? And to refrain from not doing that, what you shouldn't, yama niyama. See, that is the foundation of the whole Ashtanga. Yama and niyama, not to do that what you shouldn't do, and niyama, what you should do, what you're supposed to do. So, of course, there it is more detailed out. Okay, so now where we will go through the rest of the mantras. So we will go through quite a few mantras, which because these are covering just the names and the battlefield. The teaching, as I mentioned, starts only in the second chapter. So, but we need to just have a brief understanding of this. And from our spiritual perspective, I'm trying to also give the metaphorical, symbolic representations of that, which is especially from the yoga perspective, that these are I mean, certain teachers focus on this, especially like many yogic teachers and the Kashmir Shaivism teachers, they focus on the first chapter also. In Vedantic acharyas, they don't focus much on that. Okay, so now now from the shlokas coming onwards, we will see two things. One is there is different names that will come all through Gita for Krishna and Arjuna. So these various names of Krishna and Arjuna, Madhava, Keshava, and all that will be there. So they typically they in Sanskrit, if you break it down, they have certain meaning. So it represents certain attributes. And in some cases, in most cases, Vyasa has also used it aptly. Specific names he uses for Arjuna, Dhananjaya, and a lot of other names are Gudakesha, like one who has overcome sleep, for example, meaning like one who has that yogic skill to stay awake when needed. So that kind of qualities they represent. Some different ways, many different ways also people interpret that. So there is no one generic way, but generally it is based on the Sanskrit root, dhatus we call. So those roots, they derive the meaning. So for example, in many other countries or traditions, the names will have one generic meaning. But here that one name can have few different meanings because of the way the root words are interpreted. In fact, that is also why we have so many Vedanta darshan, that same Vakyas, different perspectives, they will interpret in different way. Dvaita Vedanta, Visishta Dvaita Vedanta, and all that. Okay, so now we will look at the shlokas. And so just a couple of things in chanting the shlokas, somebody also mentioned, so I will just mention. So first is, these, I know it's Sanskrit shlokas, they're not easy sometimes. Uh, Even for many of us Indians, even though we are born with it, many times the pronunciation, again and again we have to follow up. I notice like if I don't chant one for about a year, like again I come back, sometimes I have to look at it again. So these are things you have to, if you can pay attention. There is also some online classes, many places that are conducting parayana. Sometimes it's good to also be able to chant that mantras. But of course, from a spiritual perspective, most important is to understand it and apply it. But there is a value in that. So while chanting these mantras, these shlokas, so those of you who are having internet problems, you should mute yourself, because then what happens is your voice will come later and that will interrupt when I am chanting again. Then others can't hear. And also, those who can, you should follow me as I'm doing, because that rhythm, we have to keep up. If you find some challenge, some word, then just drop it, and then follow it the next thing. So this is all how we all learn to, like, because sometimes if you're not able to keep up, you chant half, and then some word you stumble upon. So then you can just drop it. Otherwise, what happens, I mean, especially if your microphone is on, you will cause that disruption for the group. And also, like, you should follow my tune, because if you're following other tune, then it may not end at the same time when I start. Okay, so these are just some tips as much as possible, everybody can try to follow them. Okay, so now the shlokas we will do starting from shloka number 14. So I have only the Sanskrit. So those who want to use the English transliteration, you please refer to your books. So starting from 14, can repeat after me, those who want. Tata shveteir hateir yukte
तत्श्वेतैकतैर्युक्ते
mahate syandane stithau
महति स्यन्दने स्थितौ
madhava pandavaschaiva
माधवः पाण्डवश्चैव
divyo shankau pradadmatuhu
दिव्यौ शङ्कौ
प्रदद्मतुः
Somebody's internet, I think, is a problem. So if you are not chanting, you should mute. Okay. Okay. Panchajanyam Rishikesho
पाञ्चजन्यं ऋषिकेशो
Devadattan Dhananjayah
देवदत्तं धनञ्जयः
Praudran Dadmau Mahashankham
पौड्रं दद्मौ महाशङ्खम्
Bhimakarma Vrukodaraha
भीमकर्मा वृकोदरः
Ananta Vijayam Raja
अनन्तविजयं राजा
Kunti Putro Yudhishthiraha
कुन्तीपुत्रो युधिष्ठिरः
Nakula Sahadevascha
नकुलः सहदेवश्च
Sugoshamani Pushpakau
सुघोषमणिपुष्पकौ
Kashyascha Parameshwasaha
काश्यस्य परमेश्वरः
Shikhandi cha Maharataha
शिखण्डी च महारथः
Drashtadyumno Viratascha
दृष्टद्युम्नो विराटश्च
Satyakischa Parajitaha
सात्यकी च पराजितः
Drupado Draupadiyaschcha
द्रुपदो द्रौपदेयाश्च
Sarvashah Prithivipate
सर्वशः पृथिवीपते
Saubhadrascha Mahabahush
सौभद्रश्च महाबाहुः
Shankadadmuh Pratak Pratak
शङ्खदत्म पृथक् पृथक्
Sagoshodartarashtraणam
सघोषोदार्तराष्ट्राणाम्
Hridayani Vyadharayat
हृदयानि व्यधारयत्
Nabascha Prithivin Chaiva
नभश्च पृथिवीं चैव
Tumulo Vyanunadayan
तुमुलोऽप्यनुनादयन्
Atavyavasthitan Drishtva
अत व्यवस्थितां दृष्ट्वा
Dhartarashtraन् Kapidvajaha
धार्तराष्ट्रान् कपिध्वजः
Pravritte Shastrasampate
प्रवृत्ते शस्त्रसम्पाते
Dhanurudhyamya Pandavaha
धनुरुद्यम्य पाण्डवः
Rishikeshan Tada Vakyam
ऋषिकेशं तदा वाक्यम्
Idamaha mahipate.
Idamaha mahipate.
Arjuna uvacha.
Arjuna
Arjuna
uvacha.
Uvacha
Tena yorubayormadye.
Tena yorubayormadye.
Yorubaryormadye
Ratam stapayamechyuta.
Ratam
Ratam
stapayamechyuta.
Stapayamechyuta
Yavadetaniriksheham.
Yavadetaniriksheham.
Yavadetaniriksheham
Yoddhukamanavastithan.
Yoddhukamanavasthitan.
Yoddhukamanavasthitan
Khirmaya sahayodhavyam.
Kirmaya
Kirmaya
sahayodhavyam.
Sahayodavyam
Asmin ranasamudyame.
Asmin ranasamudyame.
Ranasamudyame
Yotsyamananaveksheham.
Yotsyamananaveksheham.
Yotsyamananaveksheham
Ya etetra samagataha.
Yaetetra
Yaetetra
samagataha.
samagataha
Dhatarashtrasya durbuddhair.
Dhartarashtraya
Dhartarashtrasya
durbuddhe.
durbudhdhe
Yuddhe priyachikirshavaha.
Yuddhe
Yuddhe
priyachikishavaha.
priyachikishavaha
Sanjaya uvacha.
Sanjaya
Sanjaya
uvacha.
Vacha
Eva mukto hrishikesho.
Eva mukto
Mukto
rishikesho.
Rishikesho
Gudakeshena bharata.
Gudakeshena
Gudakeshena
bharata.
Bharata
Tena yorubayormadye.
Tena
Tena
yorubayormadye.
Yorubayormadye
Apayitva ratottamam.
Tapayitva
Tapayitva
ratottamam.
Ratottamam
Bhishma drona pramukataha.
Bhishma drona
Bhishmadrona
pramukataha.
Pramukataha
Sarvesham cha mahikshitaam.
Sarvesham cha
Sarvesham cha
mahikshitaam.
Mahikshitam
Uvacha partha pashyetan.
Uvacha
Uvacha
partha
Partha
pashyetan.
Pashyetan
Samavetan kuru niti.
Samavetam
Samavetan
kuruniti.
Kuruniti
Tatra pashyasthitan partha.
Tatra
Tatra
pasyastitam
Pashyatitan
partha.
Partha
Pitrunatha pitamahan.
Pitranatta
Pitrunata
pitamaha.
Pitamahan
Acharyan matulan bhratran.
Acharya
Acharyan
matulan
Matulan
bhratran.
Bhratran
Putran pautran sakinstata.
Putran
Putran
pautran
Pautran
sakhistata.
Sakhistata
Shvachuran suhud. Shvachuran suhrudaschaiva.
Vasuran
Shasuran
surahrudascheva.
Suhrudaschaiva
Tenayorubayorapi.
Tenayoruvayorapi.
Tenayoruvayorapi
Tan samikshya sakaunteya.
Tan
Tan
samikshya
Samikshya
sakaunteya.
Sakaunteya
Sarvan bandhu navastithan.
Sarvan
Sarvan
bandhunavasitan.
Bandhunavasitan
Krupaya paraya vishto.
Kripaya
Kripaya
paraya
Paraya
visto.
Vishto
Vishidanidamabravit.
Visidani.
Visidannidamabravit
Arjuna uvacha.
Arjuna
Arjuna
uvacha.
Uvacha
Drishtve swajanam Krishna.
Dristvemam
Dristvemam
swajanam
Swajanam
Krishna.
Krishna
Yuyutsam samupastitam.
Yutsam
Yuyutsam
samupastitam.
Samupastitam
Sidanti mama gatrani.
Siddhanti mama
Siddhanti Mama
gatrani.
Gatrani
Mukhancha parishusyati.
Mukam cha
Mukam cha
parishusyati.
parishyati
Vepayuscha sharire me.
वेपतुश्च
शरीरे
शरीरे मे
रोमहर्षश्च जायते
रोमहर्षश्च
रोमहर्षश्च
जायते
जायते
गाण्डीवं स्रंसते हस्तात्
गाण्डीवं
गाण्डीवं
संसते
स्रंसते
हस्तात्
हस्तात्
त्यक्चैव परिधप्यते
त्वच्चैव
त्वच्चैव
परिदहते
परिदह्यते
न च शक्नोम्यवस्थातुं
न च
न च
शक्नोम्यवस्थातुम्
शक्नोम्यवस्थातुम्
भ्रमतीव च मे मनः
भ्रमतीव मे मनः
मनः.
Okay, so we'll take up this. So we covered from about 14, shloka 14 to shloka 30. So now as we had looked in the last class, that shloka 13, 12 and 13 indicated that the sounding of the conscious, the conscious is that the kind of that shell thing many people are familiar with, which is used to blow that sound. So it is generally used as a war cry in Indian battles. You'll see Indian movies and all that. So once the conch is sounded, meaning everybody is ready for the battle. We're going to battle. So here we looked at it. It was Bhishma who started that. Bhishma being the commander-in-chief of the Kaurava army, he sounded that. As it said, it roared like a lion and blew his conch. And soon his whole army, everybody in his army, they all started that. Different things like kettle drums, small drums, cow horns, and other things. So, in fact, many of these instruments, which is generally used again in many Indian temples, you will see sometimes, the conches, the bells, the drums sometimes, they all are indicative. So, they have two kinds of things, it depends again on the person who is doing it and the intention for blowing it. So many times, these things are also blown nowadays, like, for example, many times here we have uh, the Kanwar Yatra. The many people are doing the yatra where they different sounds they blow, but sometimes they blow it in a very noisy way and disturbing people. So that same sound, that sound in a certain way and used, it can be a very arousing of spiritual energies, especially when we want to sit for some practice or for some deep prayers and all that. But at the same time, used in a wrong way, they can be disturbing. So here the Kauravas' use of this is more sense-based. So that sounds can either become sense. See, when you're sitting in meditation, for example, sound is one of the greatest enemy. Like you get easily disturbed by the sound. But yet there are certain inner sounds, this is why we use certain mantras, right? The bija mantras and certain other Om sound, and especially when you're able to hear the internal sound of Om in different spinal centers. So those sounds are very conducive. They are meant to help us. So sound is one of the strongest sense thing which can help us go inward or outward. Inward meaning into that deep aspects of our own, the deeper energies that pulls us upward, or that sound can take us outward. So there is both. The subtle sounds take us inward, the gross sounds take us outward. So this is what is mentioned here. So now starting from shloka 14, that now that same sound which was done, Krishna and Arjuna also they start on that same sounds. So the 14th mantra says, Krishna and Arjuna positioned on their grand chariot, pulled by white horses, blew their divine conscience. So it said here, Divya Shankar. It's a divine conscience. In fact, many of their conchs have names. So the Panchajanya is a name for Krishna's conch shell. They all have different, spiritual symbolism. And Dhananjaya was also had his conch. His name was Devadatta. So then others, Bhima, others also, they also blow their conch shells here. Then the can somebody read maybe 16 shloka 16? Can just read the shlokas in English first.
King Yudhishthira, the son of Kunti, blew the conch named Ananta Vijaya, while Nakula and Sahadeva blew their conches named Sughosha and Manipuspaka respectively.
Ah, you can read a few more. Yeah.
Kashya, the supreme archer, Shikhandi, the great warrior, Drishtadyumna, Virata, and Satyaki, Yudhana, who is undefeated. O king of the earth, Drupada, and the sons of Draupadi, and the son of Subhadra, one with great arms, blew their conches. The sound of these conch shells vibrated in the hearts of Dhritarashtra's sons, and their uproarious noise echoed through the sky and the earth.
Okay, thanks. So these sounds here, like meant to basically represent, as I mentioned, that sounds they are representing here a deeper thing for a spiritual seeker. That sounds can take us either outward or inward. So here, this battle is represented like this using that symbology of that sounds. And at the actual battlefield level, what this means is that both of them indicate their willingness to fight the battle, that they're ready and they are gearing to fight that battle. Okay, so now comes the next part here, where um, Arjuna. Now it's some we will kind of see the what the till now the narrator was narrating very generic what is happening. Now he focuses on Arjuna. So the Sanjaya who is there, who is the narrator, he focuses now on Arjuna. So maybe somebody else wants to read, starting from 20.
Shall I read, Swamiji?
Yeah, yes, please check this.
Yeah, 20th. Okay. Then, O king, after observing Dhritarashtra's sons positioned in military formation, Arjuna, whose flag bore the emblem of Hanuman, lifted his bow as the conflict was about to begin, and spoke the following words to Rishikesha, Krishna. Arjuna said, O Achyuta, Krishna, please place my chariot in between the two armies so that I may observe the warriors positioned here for the battle with whom I must engage with. For I wish to see those who have come here to fight and have assembled to support the evil-minded Duryodhana, the son of Dhritarashtra, in this battle. Let's take it a little higher.
Oh, sorry.
Sanjaya said, O Bharata, Dhritarashtra, after being addressed by Gudakesha Arjuna, Rishikesha Krishna placed the excellent chariot between the two armies.
Okay. So now these are this mentions here. Usually, the battlefield when the warriors are gathered together, they will start that right after that. But here there's a bit of diversion. What is that diversion? Is that see it starts here by saying that that Arjuna's chariot is mentioned here. What is reference to Arjuna's chariot? So we also know from Kathopanishad, there is a metaphor for the chariot. So especially this is very symbolically mentioned many times in Krishna and Arjuna's take. The chariot of Krishna and Arjuna is very symbolic for that chariot metaphor which we have in the Upanishad. So in that chariot metaphor, that chariot stands the actual physical chariot. It represents the physical body. And the charioteer, the one who is driving the charioteer, what does it represent? Those who attended Kathopanishad or those who know. What does it represent in us, the charioteer?
Is Atma?
No. Who else?
It is
Intelligence.
intellect.
It's the intellect.
Buddhi.
So
Buddhi.
the charioteer represents the buddhi. Then the one who is there on the chariot, the one who is the rider, who is the main Sarathi.
Soul.
So it is the soul, the jiva, the jiva of that person, the one who is really going through that. And then the reins of the horses. What does it represent?
Senses.
Mind.
Mind. It represents the mind. And the horses himself, generally it's 5 horses. Sometimes you see 6, but mostly 5 horses. They represent the 5 senses, or the 10 senses if we take the karmendriya. So the chariot symbolism is like that. So I as the inner jiva, I'm seated in this chariot of the body, and my senses are the horses. Wherever I see, whatever I hear, I go after that. If the mind is not in hold, meaning the reins of the horses, if I don't hold it, then my senses will go grab things I want, I don't want. And then who is the one who is directing? I want this, I don't want that. That is the buddhi, the intellect. So here the buddhi is Krishna. The Lord is the one who is the intellect. So he is going to drive Arjuna using that mind of Arjuna, that reins, and that horses. So that inner guru, the guru seated within us, guides us through our buddhi, through our intellect. And we exercise our intellect and allow the mind to function. If the mind is not in tune with that inner guidance of the guru, then what happens? We are driven by our whims and egoic desires. Okay, so that is the symbolism here. And so here there's one more emblem which is mentioned, the emblem of Hanuman, and of course there's a story about that. I won't go much into that, but it is said that actual Hanuman was seated on the in his subtle form. He was seated on the chariot. So you will see in many horses, many places, even on even my kutir door and all that, we put the flag of Hanuman. So it is very symbolic. So, and metaphorically, in a deeper way, Hanuman also represents the one who has the Ashta Siddhi. So we say, like the monkey mind, right? Generally, the mind we say is the monkey mind, meaning it is a restless mind. So here who is the monkey? The monkey is Hanuman, but he is in control of his mind, and he has attained the Ashtasiddhi, which is mentioned in the Yoga Sutras. The 8 siddhis. So the Hanuman here represents the one who has controlled the mind. So he's the one who in spirit is supporting Arjuna. So now, but however, there is a thing where the position where Arjuna asks to be seated, to be taken to the point in between the battlefield. So you will generally stay on your side, but Arjuna wants to see that, go in the middle and see who all have gathered on this battlefield. So this is also very symbolic. A sadhaka, a person, as we have mentioned in the first shloka, should take assessment of his good tendencies and bad tendencies, and be able to know, okay, what do I need to change? What do I need to improve? So similarly here, that metaphorically it is mentioned, he goes and sees. But what happens in Arjuna's case here is that he gets overwhelmed by seeing that bad tendencies, meaning not in, we will see that, but basically what he says is, I have come to see those who are supporting that evil-minded Duryodhana. So he knows Duryodhana is evil. But see, like as many times, right? People who have bad tendencies or those who are evil, they will also have a lot of friends. They will also have a lot of supporters, because the like people attract like thing, right? Like those who have those certain desires. So there is there is a sense of loyalty as long as their desires are met by the other person. The sense of loyalty is there. A certain sense of tolerance is also there for a while. But it is not that sattvic shraddha, it is the rajasic and tamasic shraddha. So, like some people, business wise, they strike partnership. So, that is a transactional shraddha. I trust that other person as long as he will serve my needs, right? Contract based kind of thing. So, so those are that is how he observes that those who are come to help Duryodhana. Let me see who are those. But then, as he says that, so Sanjaya, the third, the narrator now states that this ability, this thing, the positioning of the chariot in between, like that observing mind, that Sakshi Chaitanya is able to see what is the good things and what is the bad things which I've gathered for the battle within me. Okay, can we read the rest? 4, 5 shlokas. Somebody else? Anyone?
I can do that, Swamiji, if you'd like.
Yeah, Micah.
What number? We're beginning at 26. Then Partha Arjuna on the battlefield.
Sorry, I can't hear you. What are you saying?
Oh, we're starting on number 26.
26, 25. You can start from 25.
In front of Bhishma, Drona, and all the other warriors of the world, Krishna said, O Partha, Arjuna, look at these Kurus who have assembled here. Then Partha, Arjuna, saw on the battlefield his own relatives, including his fathers, grandfathers, teachers, maternal uncles, brothers, sons, grandsons, and friends, all standing there. Seeing his fathers-in-law, friends, and relatives positioned on both sides of the battlefield, Arjuna, overwhelmed with deep compassion and sorrow, spoke the following words. Arjuna said, O Krishna, after seeing these relatives and friends who desire to fight, my mind is overwhelmed with sorrow and compassion. My limbs are failing, my face is drying up, my body trembles, and my hair stands on end. O Krishna, seeing my people gathered here for battle, my limbs fail, and my mouth is parched, my body shivers, and my hair stands on end. My Gandiva bow slips from my grip, and my skin burns as my mind spins in confusion.
Okay,
Keshav.
that's enough. Yeah. So now this we will just look at this. So here now what is happening is that as he's so as he gathers in the middle, so he starts seeing here people who have gathered on the Kaurava side. He clearly knows that they are people who have they're fighting for adharma. They are those not following, but they are many of them are his own friends and relatives. So he gets overwhelmed seeing that these people are there, and then what happens? He's overcome by compassion. How can I kill these people? So seeing that what happens, he's physically he gets into what is called as a what in today's psychological terms we can call as like somewhat like a anxiety, a sense of anxiety or almost like a panic attack kind of thing. So he's meaning he's drawn by compassion towards those who are evil in their way. So this is where we say, right? So compassion also, there is a right sense of compassion and a wrong sense of compassion. So compassion which we give to the wrong people, how the wrong tendencies within ourselves. Sometimes we can be compassionate. We feel ourselves, oh, well, let me take a break. Let me kind of go through. I can't do this. I don't think I should put in so much effort. Let me indulge a little bit. So as a sadhaka, we tend to be compassionate towards our own habits, which will take us down. And that is a psychological kind of a way where we fall into the trap. So this is where each of us have this, what is called as, there is a masculine aspect in us and a feminine aspect of us. The feminine aspect in us is that feeling, that where we feel compassion, sympathy, love. All these are the positive things of feeling. But there is also a negative aspect of those same feelings, that love towards that wrong people or the wrong things, and that sympathy towards those things in us which doesn't need sympathy, or sympathy towards those people who are by nature evil. So those kind of sympathies are detrimental here. And the intellect also, there is a positive masculine side in the intellect and a negative masculine aspect of intellect. And this is more like a yogic psychology, where the positive masculine side of the intellect is that pure reason which has a balanced kind of approach. You know what is right, what is correct in a certain situation according to Shastras and according to the Guru. Then intellect of your own, which sometimes can be somewhat extremely judgmental. We can become overcritical of people. See, this is what we say, like the worldly things towards which we have to be habits, worldly negative habits towards which we have to be judgmental. Many times we don't exercise judgment there. But those people and situation who don't have much to do with you, or you don't have any control over them, so we tend to become judgmental on them. So this is where the intellect also can be used wrongly. So here again, this aspect of feeling is mentioned. So that compassion aspect of that feeling is good, but Arjuna's compassion is going to the wrong people at the wrong time. So he has gathered here for the battle. So there you have to battle, right? And here that sense of compassion that he's exercising is detrimental to himself and to the people who are dependent on him, whom he's supporting. So that is where the challenge comes when we overlook at our own selves. Like this is where Arjuna tries to look at both sides. The good has good tendencies of himself, bad tendencies. So sometimes what happens, we get overwhelmed by our own kind of negative tendencies, and we say, "No, I can't cope up with this." So sometimes people, who live in ashrams and all that, they say they kind of realize at a point, I can't live here because I need certain things, I have certain tendencies, and the discipline here, I cannot keep up with that. So that is being sometimes sympathetic towards our own tendencies. Of course, sometimes there are legitimate reasons, but I'm just saying generically. So this is where our when we over empathize with our own negative tendencies, then we get sucked into it. So that is that position, internal position of Arjuna. But externally, he's pitying those relatives, friends. These are people whom he grew up with. These are, at one time, they were his friends. They are his brothers, and others. So how can I kill them? So that kind of a attitude is dawning upon him. And main importantly, he's emotionally overwhelmed now. So nowadays, of course, there's a lot of research on this. Like, there is a certain aspect of the brain, they say, I think the amygdala, that controls our fight and flight responses. So when we see something, we run away. Like humans are psychologically, like in olden days, if you were in a jungle and you see some danger animal, from a snake, you would run away from that, right? So that that brain, that amygdala is supposed to help you with that. But for most of us, what has happened in our daily life situation, we are not able to regulate that. And that is where, many of us have to deal with this, right? Many of us are aware of this. So we imagine sometimes situations which is frightful where it is not really that frightful. There is some fear and panic we start feeling. So he looks at his brothers and his grandfather and others who were with him and starts getting afraid and anxiety and panics that, oh, I'm killing wrong people. What am I doing here? So that kind of situation. So, of course, in our own life, this is where, all of us, when we go through certain situations like anxiety and panics and all that, we need practices. Many of the yogic practices are designed to help us deal with that. I know many sounds, japas, and all that, right? They are all supposed to help us regulate that activity of that brain. So yoga that way works more even not just at the spiritual level, but also at the physical and mental level. Okay, so this we will we will leave it at this. There is a Mananam question on this, so we will maybe go through in the next class. And in the meantime, we will send you also any questions, comments people have till now.
Swami, can I ask?
Yeah.
Can
Yes.
I
Please.
ask you something?
Yes, please.
For example, when I hear intellect, Buddhi as intellect, I always think there is something rational and logic. I would like to ask you if I can see Buddhi at that would help us to have a clear perception, like a discernment, a clear perception. Can I see like that?
Yeah,
Or-
actually, you're right. Because many times we take buddhi to just be a logical and analytical kind of processes. So it is not necessarily that. Of course, it does encompass part of that, but it is mostly that aspect of that clear decisive aspect. But buddhi also, what the buddhi you're referring to, the clear perception, it may not always have clear perception. So some people may exercise their buddhi to have clear perception. So buddhi, ideal use of buddhi is to have a clear perception. So this is why I mentioned, that combination of clear discernment and feeling, pure feeling, that constitutes an ideal buddhi.
Okay.
So generally, like from Vedanta perspective, the buddhi is not in the brain. The buddhi is in the heart. So it doesn't necessarily mean like an brain function. Many times, many people interpret it like that. It is not just a series of logical deduction. It is a unique. So, for example, like today we talk about artificial intelligence, right? So that artificial intelligence cannot be equated to that intelligence of what we call as buddhi. Because there it is still a complete a series of analytical processes which generates to you a response. So here the buddhi can come up with a very unique kind of decisive logic for you, which may not have that step-by-step logical process that a computer might generate.
It's like a perception with compassion, this feeling, the heart and the...
Yeah, pure
Can you see?
buddhi. Again, we have to say the
Pure
pure
Buddhi.
buddhi. Yeah, the pure buddhi is that pure feeling, or we can even say intuition sometimes,
Intuition.
but not like general intuition of instinct intuition, an intuition which is very wisdom-based, clear-based, reason-based intuition.
And this compassion about Arjuna, I thought about indulge, no? Like when you have a child and you see that this child does something wrong, but you have love and you cannot stop it. It's
Yeah.
really difficult to deal with these things.
Yeah, compassion is very, yeah, it's again the
And
right
burns.
use of compassion and the wrong use of compassion is also like
Yes.
like in the example you gave, like a child, for example. Sometimes if you are too compassionate to the child, then the child may do wrong things, right? May learn wrong habits. So that compassion has to, you can see like how a child does mistake, then that compassion that comes in us, that is the compassion, correct? Yeah. Compassion is more that feeling aspect. It is there is not much of a logical process in necessarily to that.
Mm.
But of course, there are different levels of this understanding also. We can try to enhance on that. uh, we sometimes it's hard to really nail down and say that this is the actual intellect, because many times the higher goals, the higher perspectives may cause us to shut that compassion and use pure intellectual process. So I think I can only think of one example right now, which is generally used in our sannyasi's life. When many of us like come on the spiritual path, we become sannyasis and all that. Many times, especially in India, we give up responsibilities towards our parents. So from a normal person's perspective, that is a very cruel thing. Like I remember when I did 30 years, 20 years, 30 years back when I left home and all, people were telling me, why are you leaving your father and all things. So there is that you should have compassion and be responsible. So that kind of a thing. So that is what it is asked us. But see, that is the same thing that Arjuna here is feeling. It seems right that he should be compassion towards his family, right? How can he kill his family? So it is a kind of a, morally it is highly debatable why Krishna will tell him to kill. huh? So similarly, like this example I gave you, in our sannyasis example, the Shastras justifies us that thing. The Shastra says, yeah, you can be a sannyasi because you are seeking a higher goal, and that goal will eventually help your parents also at a different level. So there, you have to subdue that kind of a compassion in order to exercise a higher wisdom, a higher calling. Any other quick questions? Okay. All right. So yeah, we will. Yeah, any other questions also people can sometimes share in the group, or any comments also. So we will next Sunday continue on. Let us say a closing prayer. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamadachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay. All right. So we will generally, use this. So if anybody has any kind of an English transliteration you want to project, you can also project in the class. I mean, but I'll have to see which ones we are using. Okay. All right. Thank you. Namaste.